welcome back to the Higher Wave broadcast. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a dope podcast episode to step to. But I've been busy. I've been in the lab. I've been on the mats. I've been at the table. And I'm here with a reflection today for you. This one's about my training philosophy, the way that I like to approach training, and especially the way that I see it in the context of life and longevity and enjoyment. So when I look around me, I see that a lot of people still treat exercise as a have to do, not something that they look forward to, not something that feels good, but still it's something which has to be in some ways forced or really carved out, or some resistance needs to be overcome. And I feel that I have a certain understanding and system and a way of framing it which might be helpful for some people, so I'm going to share that here. Because I was at a point before where I'd do a couple workouts in a week or a handful of days, like a lot of people, just following the recommendation of 10,000 steps or elevating their heart rate 3 or 4 times a week for 30 minutes. The thing is, these aren't ways of interpreting and following along with exercise which are going to be conducive to long-term enjoyment and maintenance and even further progression of one's strength, conditioning, cardio, all the other physical attributes that we can talk about. Not only that, but when you're so sporadic or spread out with your training regimen, you also fail to really take in the psychological and emotional benefits that can come with consistent, steady training. And so the way that I like to approach things is not letting there be too much time between workouts. So I would like to say that I've just come from or just heading to just come out of a workout. Most times if somebody were to ask, I like to have multiple periods of physical activity in my day. And that being said, I'm not very sore all the time, and I have lots of energy. And this is because I'm continually progressing, so my numbers are going up. However, I'm also not depleting myself. I'm using exercise therapeutically, even though I do a lot of it. And of course, there does have to be a certain amount of time set aside and energy and resources towards recovery. But that's another side of the story. So one of the main overarching ideas I think that frames my idea of exercise is that the body doesn't work in terms of weeks and months in general, right? Obviously, there's cycles in the body, such as for women, the menstrual cycle, and that's a monthly thing. However, when we talk about just how the body interprets time, we have each day, a day where the sun rises and we live our life, and the sun sets and we go to sleep. And so the body doesn't really understand, like, okay, on Monday, you're going to do this. On Wednesday, you're going to do this. On Friday, you're going to do this. So, the days when you don't get your exercise in, your body's feeling like something's missing. So for me, it's really about delivering what it's asking for and what it needs each day. But obviously, we cannot just go to failure each day. We're going to become too sore. And we might even form a negative association with exercise, which is what happens with a lot of people. A lot of people have this built-in thing where they feel like if if a workout, they're not completely drenched in sweat, if they're not so out of breath and depleted and exhausted and in pain, they feel like no pain, no gain. And it's not that we always want to remain in our comfort zone when we're working out, but in my view and in my system, it's very possible to, again, continue to progress and to exert oneself, but in a way that's enjoyable. And when we do approach exercise and training each day, we can adjust the intensity to make it enjoyable, to find that therapeutic dosage where it actually fuels our energy. Even though we're using energy to exercise, it's fueling us overall for other activities in our life. And we're not reaching the point of failure in every exercise. We're not hitting PRs every single day with our weights. But there is a place for each type of training, for example, in a week. And there is room within a week to do training every day. So I'll give you a little bit of an example just to make this a bit more concrete. So let's say I get up and I'm leading jiu-jitsu class. I spark my body before getting there with some kind of stretch or movement, or of late I've been really into the mace bell training. So I'll get on to that early in the morning, and I'm not going to do a full workout. I'm going to go for 10, 20, 30, maybe 50 swings of a nice heavy bell. And maybe if I had gone harder the day before, maybe I go for my lighter mace bell. And even if I'm even more sore, maybe I just take that time and stretch, right? So this process needs to be adaptable and intelligently just responding to the conditions that you find yourself in. And so going on, I'll go to jiu-jitsu. And again, here I'll moderate. So as the person who's leading the class, I'll lead the warm-up, and I will join the class in the warm-up. We'll do some body weight exercises, we'll do some running, and then we'll have the class. And then I may or may not roll with my students. And again, here I can alter the intensity with which I'm rolling. And then the day goes on from there. When I've done this, I feel good. I feel like my body's initialized. I'm ready for the day. And I'm not depleted. I can use my mental energy for the rest of my work through the day. I can have space and conversations with people where I'm not feeling so distracted by the soreness in my body. And I don't feel like I have to guzzle 1,000,000 calories because I'm just so tired already and starting the day at a deficit. And then I go on about the day. My hormones and my neurotransmitters are all dosed up with good stuff because I got what I needed from my exercise, but I didn't overdo it. And then things continue on from there with that energy, which I was able to use in a sustainable way. Maybe later on in the day, I take a walk. I'm able to take a run or do another form of conditioning. And then I'm able to teach class in the evening, have the energy to do another mini workout with the class, and maybe or maybe not roll. And all of this needs to be done, again, in a sustainable way so that I can wake up the next day and do it all over again. Now, when I approach things in this way, I actually look forward to my next movement or training session, my next workout, and I find this correct level of where I feel like I've exerted, and I can feel it in my body, but I'm not at a deficit. I'm not feeling like I'm burning out and that I have to call in sick, or I'm not feeling like I'm at a point where my adrenals are so fatigued or that I'm reaching into like burnout or something like that. Now you have somewhat of a picture of what it would be like for this balanced approach. And now I'll give you the opposite. So I can actually just describe to you how I used to be before finding this way of training and living, I should say, because it goes beyond just the training, it's going into lifestyle. So before, I used to go for max reps, max weights, almost every time that I would be in the gym. I would be extremely sore for days at a time. I would feel unreasonably hungry and this need to just eat and eat and eat, and it felt like my body was inefficient. It felt hard to slow my heart rate after it was up a lot. Everything seemed out of whack, and then I would have second thoughts about my workouts because I had almost traumatized myself in my nervous system feeling what was to come. And this isn't a great way to go about it. Not only that, I would have more injuries at that time. And then this would, even though I was getting seemingly higher numbers, then I wouldn't be able to continue to progress because I would get injured because the body was just being pushed too hard, too often. So now this subject of PRs and really heavy lift days has come up a couple times so far, so I'll address it. Now, I do really feel like it's great to get a really serious pump a couple times a week or once a week, and to have days that are harder than other days. I call it getting your RoboCop walk on. And so we all want that. We want to feel our physical prowess and really push the limits. However, if you're doing that every time that you're in the gym, well, it's going to come at a detriment because you're going to add so much load to your body. You're going to stress out your nervous system, and you're also going to take away from other activities, physical as well as your professional life, your family life. And so it's best to vary this intensity and make most days, challenging, but not out of reach, and make them enjoyable so that you really form a positive association with workouts and exercise. This is going to be the most sustainable way forward. This is going to be the way that supports your health. This is going to be the way that your resting heart rate will come down more steadily over time. Because what happens with a lot of athletes is that, again, they're kind of out of practice, they're out of touch, they're sitting down, and they're sedentary, and they're barely even walking. And then they'll have a few hard workouts each week and really kick their nervous system and their heart rate up. But there's not enough frequency of that stimulation for the heart rate, the cardiovascular system that's happening. And so in some senses, they're bodybuilding or they're getting stronger. But in other senses, they're, as an all-around life athlete, are being diminished, and their heart's not used to that steady work. So the best thing that we can do is continue to progress in all these ways. We can continue to build strength day after day, having some harder days in a week. We can make our cardiovascular and calisthenic workouts more often, or lower weight workouts. We can vary with different equipment. And to that point too, I feel like a lot of people also make their gym workouts or their workouts more spread out because they actually have to go through too many steps to get into their exercise. Probably still the case that most people have to go somewhere outside of their house to get a workout or a class in. And one of the things that I suggest for most people is that even if you do have a gym membership, you should be investing in a few key pieces of home equipment, things that don't take up too much space, but that you can get a good mini workout in, especially, for example, on days when you can't make it into the gym. But even on the days that you, let's say, have a work day and you plan to go to the gym after work, well, those would be good days where in the morning when you wake up, you're having your coffee. That would be a good time to toss around a kettlebell for a little bit, 5 minutes, while your coffee's cooling down or getting made, or anything else that you can sort of work in earlier in the day, or even later on if you've already had a morning gym workout and now you just want to get some light movement in for the evening. So I think having home options or options for exercise and working out where you don't need to take so many steps, maybe you don't even need to rely on a membership somewhere or have to rely on other people to get it going. These are really good ways in which to up that frequency, consistency, and ease of exercise. So now as I look back at my own progression, I will say that there is a progression that's needed over time. There is a self-learning and adaptation that's needed over time to really develop this system of being, of lifestyle, of movement. And I'll give you a little bit of background as to how it went for me. So again, I would work out a handful of times in a week. Maybe 2 or 3 hard workouts, and I wouldn't be doing too much in between. And then from there, the next stage was to add a little bit more walking, a little bit more hot yoga, and more body weight training from there. From there, I progressed to some light weights. I began to run more. I began to add more jiu-jitsu sessions. And then I began to add heavier weights, more varied exercises and different equipment, again, such as the mace bell and different forms of cardio. So being able to mix it up with the bike, the rower, skipping, speed rope is my favorite. And just over time, each person has to find that level of therapeutic exercise where they're going to get the benefits without getting overly sore. And this is something that I might have touched on earlier, but I want to get deeper into now, is the psychological and emotional benefits, right? So if you really feel better after exercise, then why would we not want to feel this more often, right? So when we go too hard, we kind of end up preventing ourselves from feeling those de-stressing effects, the feeling of letting off steam, of getting that squeeze in terms of jiu-jitsu, or the pump from weightlifting, or being able to smash pads in Muay Thai. So if this feels good, isn't it something that you would want to do more often? So again, when we go too hard, then we prevent ourselves from wanting to go back the next day. But in my experience and observing students, the ones who do take this gradual daily approach and alter their level of intensity and are okay with tempering their ego to do that, they're the ones who can train longer and more frequent. And then as a result, their mood and their habits and their vices and even their relationships in their life end up getting the benefits more consistently of that everyday action in the body. So I just want to round things off here by saying that if you feel like you're resistant to exercise, it's hard to get in the mode. It's hard to go and get your sweat on and really get into an intense zone and get in there, week after week, day after day. I'll encourage you to take this gradual approach. varying your exercises, doing shorter bursts, and really encouraging you to develop a positive association with whatever exercise or practice or martial art that you have, and letting it fit into your lifestyle. Take a good look at how you can align it with your time commitments, with the energy that you need for your professional life and your family, and fit things in a way that it's going to be sustainable and enjoyable over the long term. And you're going to see yourself really progressing a lot further, faster, and more completely than you have in the past. Let me know what you think about this. Let's discuss in the comments.